Dog Studio video. I'm Christian, and for today's video we're going to go over throwing a wash over the miniatures, and we're going to work on their bases. Today's video will also be the final video in the Saga Pagan Militia series. Now, as you can see here, I've got my wash in a bottle cap. Again, I do that because washes and inks tend to bleed through the parchment paper in a wet palette. Your thinner paints don't, even airbrush paints, most of the acrylic paints that we use won't do that. But something about the inks and washes will. They'll just bleed right through that parchment paper. As you can see, I'm being pretty liberal applying the wash. I want these guys to have somewhat of a dingy look. Now, the wash will help the shading, but I've already applied some washes that were color specific to kind of help with that and help blend highlights. Today I'm just really trying to give them some extra shadows and to give them kind of a dingy look. I want these Rus warriors to look like they've been marching, you know, out through the mud and snow, which we'll be applying some snow effects later. Now, there you just saw there was some excess buildup on the shield, and I just used my brush to absorb some of that excess. Flat earth, I'm going to use this as a highlight on the base, which I've already painted with charred brown from the Vallejo Game Air line, and there I have flat earth from the model color line. Again, for this, because I don't want to put it on the wet palette, because I don't want the paint particularly wet or any more wet than it already is. The model color line is particularly thick, so it lends itself to dry brushing really well. I just put it on the back of the bottle cap, or what would be the top. I get some paint on my brush, and then there you see me getting off the excess onto a paper towel. There, I'm just gently running the brush over the rough texture on the base. I'm not worried about getting too much under the miniature because I want it to look like, you know, he has somewhat of a shadow on the ground. Although with these guys later, when I throw on some dead leaves and some snow, the highlights aren't as noticeable. I want to apologize for the focus issue. I was using a webcam to record these, and this will probably be the final video I record with that because I recently purchased a new camera. Then going forward, I'll be using to make videos. I purchased a Power Shot from Canon. It's got a much better close focal point. Now, I gave all the miniatures that wash, but rather than have you sit here through 40 minutes of me doing the same thing over and over again, I have edited down the video. So what I'm about to do now is I'm about to start applying my effects to the base, and I'm going to be using some Gorilla Glue, which I believe I give you a shot at the bottle here in a minute. It's a wood glue. You can use any PVA glue. That's just what I had closest at hand. Brand really doesn't matter. That's just what I'm using, and I wanted you to see what I use. kind of a fan of the Gorilla Glue products. But again, it's just PVA glue. Any PVA glue would work. Now, you're about to see me use a syringe. It's not one with a needle on it. It's just the plunger part. I'm soaking up some clear water from that mug, and I'm going to water down the PVA glue. And I honestly didn't pay attention to the CCs. I don't really worry too much about volume as far as actually measuring goes. I just kind of do it by sight and how runny the glue is and what I'm looking for. And I'll show you a little bit here, just kind of the texture. I think I'll give you a close-up of that later on. Now, the consistency I have there, again, it's just kind of by eyeball of what I want. I want to be able to manipulate the glue. I want it to be thin enough that it'll absorb into whatever product I put down on the base to help adhere that product. I think that would have been probably about half and half, maybe a little bit more water than glue. Now this is a new product that I'm trying out here. I hadn't ever used this before this video. No, this is from Green Stuff World. I actually like a lot of their products, but I'm not real fond of this. This leaf flocking that I got from them is actual leaves. It's not fake. A lot of foliage that you get is made from synthetic products, made from various nylons or foams or various fibers from what we would consider synthetic materials. These are actually leaves from some tree that actually produces these tiny little brown leaves. At least for the seeding part of their cycle. Scale wise, the leaves are actually not really spot on. I gotta be honest, again, I'm not real thrilled with this product. It worked for what I wanted, and I think the miniatures turn out okay. I actually quite like the way that the bases look, considering this is the first time I've ever used a leaf flocking for this purpose. I think going forward I'll be interested in experimenting with some other products. So basically what you've seen me do is you just see me throw the glue down, and then I start putting the leaves on. And I do kind of tamp the leaves down into that glue. Here you see me using some tweezers to kind of manipulate the leaves and get them where I want them. Because I want it to try to look natural. I don't want them just all mounded up. Especially because, again, the leaves are not really to scale perfectly. They're a little large. One of the nice things about the PVA glue, when it dries clear. Again, you see how I just apply it to the base. I have that thin down consistency of it, and I just use the brush to get it onto the miniature. And you're not really going to ruin your brush as long as you rinse it off. It's another nice thing about the PVA glue. It takes a while to set up. It's not like super glue. You get a little super glue on your paintbrush is going to be ruined. PVA glue, not so much. For some basic materials, I actually do use super glue, but for a lot of stuff like this, PVA glue is the way to go. Again, I'm just using some tweezers to try to manipulate it, move some of the leaves around before the glue starts to set up. There, I'm just using the back end of the tweezers to kind of tamp it down a little bit, get it into that glue and make it look flat, you know, make it look like it's been laying on the ground for a while. Because again, I wanted these guys to look like they've been kind of marching through the wilderness, marching through some winter weather. Now here, I'm using the glue over the leaves that I already have down. So I put the glue on the base, I put the leaves on top of that glue, tamp them down into that glue. And again, because PVA glue dries clear, I can go in and use PVA glue on the top of it, and it's watered down PVA glue. You wouldn't really want to do this with PVA glue straight out of the bottle. You want to water it down pretty good. And what that'll do is that will again help give it a nice coating that will protect and just hold those leaves to that base. As it coats them and works its way down through the leaf foliage. Now I did wait for the other glue layer to start drying and setting up before I applied this glue layer here on top of the leaves. You would want to do that also. It just makes it a lot easier. If you don't wait for that original glue to dry when you go back over it with the PVA glue, you're just going to start moving everything around again. And there's a risk of that even if you do wait, just because the wet PVA glue, the water can actually reactivate the glue that's underneath it. But in this case, as long as you're not being real rough with it, it actually works for what you're trying to do. Okay, there I've started to apply my snow flock. I'm going to give you a rundown. That first one that I showed you, just the miniature that already had that on there, he was really just kind of a test piece. I can't remember the branding of the particular snow flock that I'm using. That's why I didn't give you a good close-up look at that. I can't remember. I have it. It came in a clear bag, and I just put it in a bottle for easier, or a little cup actually that I bought at like a dollar store or something for easier use. And then there I just have the snow flock in a bottle cap, and I'm using the bottle cap to then just tap some of it out onto the base of the miniature. And again, I'm using watered down PVA glue to soak up through that snow flock. Now the particular snow flock I'm using here, unlike some other products that I've used before from can't remember that manufacturer either, because I've had it for so long and I use it so seldom. Oh, Army Painter. I actually have some Army Painter snow flock that I really like. Now snow flock I've used before that was actually just baking soda and PVA glue. But the problem with that is you have to tend to mix a little white paint in with the baking soda, otherwise it'll get this kind of funny brown tint to it that comes from being mixed with the PVA glue. And the Army Painter snow flock I really liked. This stuff is a different material. It's actually ground glass. Is what you see me applying there is actually a glass. So you want to be very careful with this stuff. You don't want to get it all over your skin or might cause some irritation. Again, I'm just being pretty liberal with it, and I'm using the PVA glue, the water PVA glue down, not just to get the snow flock to stick to the base, but I'm actually using it to help manipulate the snow and get it kind of tamped down, because I want it to look like some of it's been melting. Like it hasn't snowed recently, like maybe it snowed, you know, earlier in the day, or maybe the day before, and it's starting to melt, and these guys are trekking through the mud and snow to go fight for their territory or their resources, or maybe go fight to take somebody else's territory or resources. In one of my previous videos too, I mentioned how these guys were probably like farmers or something. Actually, after doing a little bit more digging, I've learned that these guys would have been the professional warriors Saga actually put out a group of levies, and apparently the way the point system works in the game, that for the equal number of points there are more levies because they're not professional soldiers. Your levies are the guys that would have been your farmers and laborers that were just called to arms. Whereas these particular miniatures here, the militia would have been the actual professional soldiers. Looking at it from a historical perspective. And the way that the game's set up. So again, I'm just manipulating that snow flock using the PVA glue, using the fact that it's not set up yet to get it smeared around. I'm actually pretty happy with the way that the snow flock turned out. Of course, I was happy with the Army Painter snow flock also, but I really like this stuff, and it actually came in two different textures. I got one that I think is made to look a little bit more like a slush when it's put down. I don't use that here. I use the finer one. It's made to look like actual snowpack or snow. Yeah, I think the mic's picking it up. I got a dog barking outside. And that would be the inspiration behind the name of my studio. Now here what I'm doing, I'm trying a different approach to applying it. Instead of putting the glue down and then sprinkling the snow flock onto the glue, I'm actually just getting the brush liberally wet with the PVA glue water mixture, and I'm coming back and actually putting it in the cap that has the snow flock in it and getting it stuck all over the bristles of the brush, and then coming up to the miniature and then just kind of essentially painting it on, painting the snow flock on. It actually seemed to work. I was still able to manipulate it and get the flock and glue mixture transferred onto the miniature base without too much issue. In fact, I don't think I really had any problems with it. I think it worked. But that was a new method I was exploring in the video. I don't know how well the mic yet. I'll figure it out on playback right when I listen to it. But so my dog's barking, and then there's a neighbor dog that's barking in answer to my dog, and I don't know what they're saying to each other, but they're having an entire conversation. Talking about the weather? They're talking about somebody who just jogged by the house? Sometimes I wonder. Well, we're approaching the end of our video, and I'll give you guys a good close-up look at the army. What had just happened there was a little clump had fallen off, and I just picked it back up with the brush and was able to get the flock back on there. So I was trying to figure out a way to get the snow flock applied without really wasting any. And I really do think getting the glue all over the brush and then putting the brush down into the flock and getting the flock all over the brush and bringing it up to the miniature actually worked. Now there it's still very wet. It actually ended up looking much better when it dries. Here we go. There those guys are in their finished versions. Those guys look kind of grimy, like they've been campaigning for a while. Look kind of battle weary as they approach the enemy. Buck on, puppies.